Welcome, everybody. We got a full house today, folks, and we got lots to cover.
Yep. Super fun topic.
What's more
CSS
exciting?
Profile.
I mean, you guys probably jumped out of bed this morning, just knowing you're going to get to hear
Can't
the
wait to
CSS
talk to Peg
Profile.
and Matt about the CSS Profile.
We got some other stuff, though. We're going to keep you on your feet a little bit here. Um, so I know we got I'm sure kind of some new folks, some OGs, the as you have nicknamed yourself, our groupies. I imagine there's some of you here. But we always like to know, especially for those of you new, where you at in the country. Typically Peg and I are on opposite sides of the coast, but there's a big conference in LA this week, so I'm out on the West Coast. Typically, I'm in Boston, but NACAC, the National Association for College
Admission counselor.
Admissions
And I'm
Council.
supposed to be there, but I had a thing happen at my home, so I couldn't be there with my buddy today.
Being a good wife, taking care of her hubby and her second husband after me, right? Yeah. So we're good.
This is being recorded.
That's right. We're we're going to be educating school counselors, college counselors on all these new FAFSA changes tomorrow morning. So we're excited to do that. We got a big crowd, but we got to take care of our people here. So and we also love knowing what's the graduating class of your student. I'm sure we got predominantly 25s, but I have a feeling we got some 26s and stuff. Yeah, that's about what we would expect. So look at we always record these, so you will get a recording. If you have to be in and out a little bit tonight, or you have to dip early, we'll send a follow-up tomorrow. Do your best to stay to the end. For those of you that know us, knows that we always do a little something special for our live attendees at the end. We do some really meaningful discounts that we don't give anywhere outside of folks that show up live with us, because that's who keeps you folks keep Peggy and I on our toes. We want to make this interactive. Ask your questions, right? The great thing about things being virtual, you can be anonymous. You have a really personal question as it pertains to your situation, be anonymous, but put them in the Q&A, because whichever one of us is not talking, we're going to be living in that Q&A section. If we don't answer your question, it'll be for one of two reasons. Number one, there's too many people. We won't be able to get to all of them. Okay. We are not ignoring you. We don't, we value you. The other one, if it's, some questions we'll get is, how do I value my business? Which one of us should complete the FAFSA? We just need more information to answer some of those questions. And so sometimes we say, we got to get some more specifics. It would be reckless of us to give you a firm recommendation in this forum. So without further ado, I'm Matt Carpenter. We are College Aid Pro. I'm one of the founders. This is a special year for me. This is the 20th class 2025 is the 20th class I've kind of shepherded through this process, which is a big feather in my cap, big honor for me. And look at that. I'll be doing this as long as you'll have me, because there's nothing more rewarding than having this really overwhelming anxiety kind of inducing process and making it work right for folks, and just kind of hopefully providing clarity, transparency. That's our deal. And I'm small potatoes compared to the fairy godmother of financial aid herself, Peg Keogh, up there in Seattle. Peggy, why don't you say hi and take us away?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for quite a while myself. I was in the financial industry, and then I have twins, a boy and a girl. And so when they hit high school, I kind of did this deep dive into how is all this going to work, not the saving part, but this kind of stuff that we're talking about tonight. And I was just shocked at how complicated it was compared to when I was a kid. And I just decided to kind of make a little pivot in my career there. And I started my own business just doing this sort of thing. And I met Matt and the College Aid Pro gang a couple years in, beta tested our software with them and got to know them. And we just always talked about having a deeper relationship. And 3 years ago, it was a good time for me to get a team, and they were looking for people. And so it just worked out. So I joined them 3 years ago. My best credential is probably that I have my two kids. And Matt has a daughter, but he hasn't sat in the seat yet. It's coming up faster than he thinks. But I have. And so I get it. I get it. And all the stress I read about and all the craziness, so much of it is unnecessary. That's like my book that's in my head that I haven't written yet. It really is. It's unnecessary, and the student loan debt and all this crazy stuff that goes on. So that's who I am. Excited to be here. Welcome to our groupies and our newbies. So let me share my screen here. So as Matt said, he's one of the founders of College Aid Pro. I'm the director of education here. And this truly is our mission. This is what gets us out of bed, right? To end the student debt crisis by empowering you to shop smarter for college. That includes talking to counselors like Matt's doing right now. But really, you guys, you are who we're trying to support here. We know the journey you're on, and we want to support you on it. So it doesn't have to be as stressful, and your child can find a great academic, personal, and financial fit college without all the craziness. So there we are. So since it's financial aid time, you notice I have a little fluke necklace on too. I'm a big whale person. So we want you to just take a deep breath, because I know there's a lot of anxiety around this whole piece. So basically, when you're doing these forms, and we're just going to talk about the CSS, a little bit about the FAFSA tonight, but it's not live yet, or it's not going to be live for a while. But when you do these forms, you can save and come back. You know, you can take breaks. It's not a timed SAT, okay? And you can fix mistakes. We're here to help you not make those mistakes. See, there's nothing to fix, but just keep all of that in mind and kind of think about, take a lot of deep yoga breaths, because it's just, all the stress isn't necessary, and you'll get through it. And we're here to support you. So everybody should have gotten an email today encouraging you to set up a free MyCAP account. And that's our, we call it our consumer software. We call MyCAP. We can see that a lot of you already have, and so great job. It's very quick and easy, and it's going to give you a ton of information. You might be thinking, well, why do I need to do that now? We've already decided on the list. You might have, but our software takes you all the way through appealing and knowing if you get good financial aid awards. So you're not done. You're not done with the journey once you submit forms. There's more to go here. So Matt's going to put that in the chat, that link. So we strongly encourage you to get that set up, and he's going to pop in there in a minute. So you'll at least have a visual of the dashboard, and you'll see all the great information that you're going to get, and that you can do it for free and put in 3 colleges and use most of the software for free. So really encourage you to take a few minutes and do that. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, Matt.
Yeah, before we get granular on the CSS profile and the forms themselves, it always makes sense to zoom out a little bit, you know, talk about the meta parts of this process, which leads us to the why, right? We've already got a bunch of questions. What's the point of filling out the CSS profile if I'm not going to qualify for financial aid? Why would I do the FAFSA? One reason, a lot of these colleges will require these forms if you want to be considered for even merit-based scholarships, right? We always use NYU as an example. If you want to be considered for any type of discounts, again, regardless of your financial information, you are required to complete the FAFSA and the CSS profile at NYU. That's not every school, but a lot of schools fall into that category. You are also entitled to certain financial aid programs just by completing the FAFSA. Again, regardless of your income, you can be a billionaire, and there still are strategic things that you can take advantage of just by completing that form. So at its highest, kind of simplest level, financial aid is any type of discount from college. Anytime we're not paying the full sticker price, or cost of attendance is the kind of formal name here, we're getting some type of financial aid, and there's 3 types. Need-based grants, this is free money that's given based on our family's financial profile, and then how generous or not a particular college is. Merit-based scholarships, these are colleges that say, we don't care what type of income you have. We don't care about your resources. We want your student to come to our school. We're going to offer them a financial incentive to do that. That's merit-based scholarships. We'll talk about both of those. Finally, our least favorite type of financial aid, but there's still a place for it. There's still some meaningful value with it, but self-help financial aid, so I like to say it's a sexy term for loans, but there are still some advantages to that program or that type of financial aid for many, and I would say most families. And Peg, you can go to the the next slide here. So starting quickly, again, just a brief overview of how need-based financial aid works. The nice thing here, guys, is that something that I would argue we say more than anything else is it depends on the college, right? It depends on the college. Every college is different. Well, anytime there's a universal rule, that's really helpful when we want to be comfortable with it. And this is an example. Every single college uses this calculation to determine a family's eligibility for need-based financial aid. And that is the cost of attendance, so the sticker price of a college. Now we have dozens. Starting next year for the class 2025, there will be dozens with an S of colleges that will charge over $100,000 a year, okay? Minus your student aid index or expected family contribution. These are interchangeable terms here. A little bit of a newer terminology. I won't bore you with the specifics, but in its simplest terms, this is a dollar amount that gets assigned to the student based on your family's financial situation, largely your income and your assets. If your student aid index is lower than the cost of attendance at any college, the difference between those two figures is the amount of need you are potentially eligible for. So if a college is 100,000 and your SAI is 40,000, you're eligible for up to $60,000 worth of need at that particular college. So who's going to pay for that 60,000? You're on the hook for the 40. That's your foundation. That's the starting point. But who's going to pay for that 60? It depends on the school, right? It could be Columbia University. They're $100,000, but guess what? They meet 100% of need. That means that they're going to take care of that 60. You pay 40 to go there. What if it's NYU? They're not as generous. So in addition to the 40, you're going to pay about half of that $60,000 in need, again, if you want to go to NYU. So that's where it's very school specific, but high level, that's how need-based financial aid works. Now, look, at some of you have already kind of been forthcoming to say, we're not going to be eligible for need-based financial aid. How do we get discounts? The most obvious place, there's more than one way to answer this question. There's more than one solution, right? Because none of us should be paying $100,000 a year for college. But the most obvious place is scholarships. And I'm going to talk to you in a second about the best place to figure out who's going to give your kids scholarships and how much, okay? And that's going to be within our platform here. I already noted the fact that some of these colleges, they require these financial aid applications, even if you want to be considered for merit-based aid. Very important thing that is not common knowledge. It's a school-by-school basis, right? A lot of people don't know that there's about 100 colleges in which scholarships do not exist, right? There's not. Now, Peggy, where'd you go to college again? I always forget.
Cornell.
Oh, Cornell. I always forget. There's my star tennis player. So for those of you that have students that are gifted enough to get into Cornell, like my colleague, okay, there's not one kid at Cornell that's there on a scholarship. And the same is true with every Ivy League school. Most of the NESCAC, so Williams, Amherst, Bates, the MITs of the world, nobody is there on a scholarship. If they're not paying full sticker price, it means they're getting need-based financial aid. The last bullet point here, and this is a really important concept, I'm going to plant the seed tonight, okay, but you have to apply to competing colleges. So right now, for you 25s that are in the final stages of just kind of putting the finishing touches on your list of colleges, you must have competing schools on that list, right? I had a conversation with somebody just this week that said, hey, our number one choice is Boston University, but we thought we were going to like Northeastern, but we hated it, okay? Guess what? I'm making them apply to Northeastern, knowing we're never going to go there, but also knowing they are direct competitors and we will absolutely leverage them against one another. And guess what? We're going to get more money from BU as a result, regardless of our need-based financial aid eligibility. So these are the things we want to be thinking about, again, especially if we're not eligible for need-based financial aid. Okay, go ahead, Peggy. And I think I will go into the platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me share.
Or do you want to just hit? No, I think you want to hit this and then go in.
Okay, sure. So
I've already gotten some questions about this. So.
That's right. And I've said a couple already, right? Why should we submit these financial aid forms? A lot of people disqualify themselves because they make assumptions. My neighbor said I'm not going to get anything, don't bother. My sister-in-law said the same thing. Again, I mentioned the fact that a lot of these schools, you have to do the forms to be considered for merit. Most of these schools, if you do not apply for freshman year, and this is the vast, vast, vast majority, if you don't apply freshman year, you don't get to change your mind in subsequent years, right? You're telling them we are willing and able to pay full sticker price for all 4 years. You lose your job in the student's senior year, it doesn't matter, right? Junior year, sophomore year, doesn't matter. You have a new kid coming up, right? And now their sophomore year, you have 2 kids in college. Too bad you didn't apply freshman year, right? If we want to have a chance to appeal, to negotiate for more money, generally speaking, we have to have had at least filed our financial aid applications. Federal direct student loans. If you complete the FAFSA, you are entitled, the student is entitled to borrow up to $27,000 via the federal direct student loan program. What if I don't need my kid to borrow? What if I don't want my kid to borrow? Guess what? Take this loan out. It's just under their name. Pay it off instantaneously. They'll graduate with a 780 credit score or thereabout. So, in other words, there is a reason why you should take advantage of that federal program, regardless of whether you actually need to use it or want to use it, or you're just going to pay it off as a strategy to help the kids build credit. Okay, Peggy, I'll share briefly before we go on to the next year. So I saw that actually just about all of you already created your accounts here, which is awesome. So as I was talking about that SAI minus, cost of attendance minus SAI equals need, you know what your SAIs are, right? They're staring you right in the face after you've onboarded. But more importantly, you know what these colleges are actually going to cost you. Excuse me. In most cases, the sticker price of colleges are irrelevant. Now, this is a Los Angeles resident. Okay, so this family lives in the Valley in LA, kind of average income, average savings, divorced household, right? So split household family. They also have a lot of home equity. So you see that USC and Stanford, some almost identical sticker prices. Why am I going to pay so much more at USC versus Stanford? Stanford thinks your home equity is fair game. Chapman even more so. Okay, so these are the factors that are all baked into the algorithm. But again, especially if you're divorced, if you're separated, if you're a business owner, if you have some equity in your primary residence, you want to know which colleges are looking at these variables and how much emphasis are they putting on each of them. It's very, very important to know, again, before you even apply, what are these schools actually going to cost me? And when it comes to looking for scholarships, right? And again, as you're finalizing that list of schools, we want you to say, okay, we're looking to stay relatively local. Maybe my kid is probably going to be more comfortable at a smaller campus and they're thinking about majoring in whatever. Okay, I can put those admissions criteria in there, and then I can just go sort based on who's going to give me the most in scholarship dollars. So regardless of my kids, regardless of my income, right? Redlands is still going to give me $37,000 in scholarships. That's pretty meaningful discount. Or if I am eligible for financial aid, well, we can rank order just based on that. So, I don't know if my kid's gifted enough to get into Caltech, but shoot, maybe they can get into, Pitzer, Pomona, and obviously still very competitive colleges, but they are unbelievable with need-based financial aid. So again, that's how you should be leveraging the platform right now. And this is speaking to you. This isn't averages, but this should, kind of take out the guesswork in terms of how much schools are actually going to give me. And that's really the end result of your FAFSA and of your CSS profile, right? Those are the forms that are dictating these awards.
All right, I got 20 questions done, buddy. So get to work, okay?
Yeah, you've been firing away, and I think I might have 1 or 2 more slides here before I kick it to you. But
okay, so I still got more work to do. Yeah, you're right. You do.
I'm going to be very quick because we got to make sure
you got a couple more slides. You do.
We leave you some time. So, I would say in terms of like this whole actual applying for financial aid process, what are the due dates? Who requires what? This is where I go back to what I teased at the top. Everybody's different, guys. So if you're applying to 15 colleges, you are responsible because they are not proactive in making you aware of this. Who just requires the FAFSA? Because at baseline, everybody's going to require the FAFSA. Many of these colleges, in addition to the FAFSA, will require the CSS profile. We have the Princetons of the world that they don't use the CSS profile, but they have their own institutional application. UPenn, FAFSA, CSS profile, and their own financial aid application. You have to proactively seek out who requires what, when do they need it, how do they need it, and do not miss a deadline. Okay, do not give these guys any excuses to give you less money, because generally speaking, if you do, they will gladly take you up on that. And then again, the FAFSA, have in your minds right now, guys, we're not going to be able to access it until December 1st. Okay, just that's the baseline. If that changes, we will let you know. I promise. Peg specifically has a pulse on this every single day, more than once a day. As of now, it's not going to be open until December 1st. But right now, what you can do is start to create your FSA IDs. The student needs one. If you have twins, each of your, like Peggy, each of the students need one. And then one of the parents needs the FAFSA, needs an FSA ID as well. If it's a two-parent household, just one parent needs it. If you're divorced or separated, whatever household is completing the FAFSA is the one that needs the FSA ID. All right, Peggy. And Peggy, you know what? Why don't you just talk briefly, because maybe you got a ton of questions like I did. Why don't you talk about divorced and separated families before we bust into the profile?
Yeah, so and we did, there have been a few questions. So if you're divorced or separated, and you're living separately, you got to be in separate dwellings, then, and I think Matt just said it, but only one parent is submitting the FAFSA, the custodial parent. And the custodial parent is defined as the parent who provided the most financial support. Matt said it's going to go live for most families December 1. So say you're submitting the FAFSA December 10th of this year. It's a year look back. Which parent provided the most financial support? That's a planning opportunity. If you're close to being even, which a lot of parents are nowadays, that's something we can support you on. Who should be the custodial parent? You never want to lie, but you've got time. You've got time to say, hey, it's going to be better for me to be the custodial parent, but I'm not, at this point right now, I haven't paid if it was a year look back. But how can we hopefully work together to make it work for your family? So you're putting your best foot forward to get the most aid from the colleges while still following the rules. So that's because the other parent is not involved at all on the FAFSA. No FSA ID, no submitting of any information. If you're remarried, your new spouse, if you're the custodial parent, is part of that household, so they're included. That should be part of your thinking. If you're close to 50-50, maybe the other spouse isn't remarried, all of these things. And that's where we can sit down and really strategize with you. And since this new rule last year, we've done a lot of that with families. They could literally put tens of thousands of dollars in your pocket of additional aid. Now, when I get into the CSS profile, you're going to see the CSS profile. This is a key difference. They have both parents submitting a form if you're divorced. There's the regular CSS profile that as the custodial parent with the FAFSA definition, the federal definition is you're going to submit that with your child. Then they're going to expect what's called a non-custodial profile from the other parent. And so both forms go to College Board, who administers the CSS profile. I can just go to my next slide here. And College Board has that information, and then the colleges will have it. So most colleges are looking at both parents when you're divorced or separated, but not all of them. And so we know the schools that don't. That's another planning opportunity. I'm a financial planner by background, so I'm all over this stuff, right? This is where, if you understand the way these colleges function, their business plan, if you will, one school could be a lot more generous for your family with aid versus another school. And both of those schools could be a great fit for your child. So these are all the things we want to help you understand. So the CSS profile goes live October 1. It's about 250 colleges that require it, mostly private. There's a few publics in there. Another key difference between the CSS and the FAFSA, and I have a screenshot of this, and I'll show you in a bit, your primary home, they want to know about it. They want to know when you bought it, what you bought it for, what's the market value, which is a big thing to not overestimate, and how much do you owe on your house, right? They're going to look at that. A lot of schools are going to say, hey, mom and mom, or mom and dad, or mom and mom, or whatever your family setup is, they can tap that money. You might not agree with it. That's a good thing for you to understand. Some of the CSS profile schools like Stanford are like, yep, we want the CSS profile, but philosophically, we're not looking at home equity. That's another planning opportunity for all of you if you're sitting on a lot of home equity. If you're a business owner, there's a woman, I don't think I got to answering her question, but she said, I'm a psychologist and I have a private practice. You're a business owner. You might have a corporate return. You might be a sole prop and have a Schedule C on your tax return. They're going to want to know all about your business. And you're going to have to put a business value on the FAFSA as well. So the CSS tends to be a bear. Remember those deep yoga breaths that I talked about? you need them big time when it comes to the CSS. So I'm going to quickly show you the dashboard just so you have a visual. You set this up with your child's College Board it locked me out. Sorry. Hold on. Let me do it again. You log in with your child's College Board credentials, which most kids have, if they did the PSAT, SAT, any of that stuff. So you don't need any special IDs like the FAFSA. So it's super easy. You just need to get that. So here's your dashboard. Once you get started, it's gonna assign you an ID. My sample family, and I'll show you this in a minute. If you make under 100,000, they'll waive the fees because this one isn't free. And as you add schools, they're going to end up on your dashboard. So you're going to see all the schools that you're submitting it to for your child. So let me just go into the application. You can see here, we would have to take 2.5, 3 hours, and you would be so bored and have a headache of all the flipping around I would do to get through all these sections. But there's all these sections here, and I'm going to go through them. Like this one I didn't totally complete, so it's telling me that. Well, I'm going to hit the highlights here where most people get confused and just that kind of stuff. But that's what it's going to look like when you go in. And remember I said before, you can save it, you can go back, so you don't have to sit down in one sitting and get it done, which is a good reason to not wait till the last minute, because then you will. Okay, so once you get into this form, you're going to set it up. I'm not going to go through the self-explanatory pages, but you need to add, or your child needs to add, all the schools that they want. Don't worry. You can't add University of Colorado Boulder. It'll give you an error message. It won't show up because they don't require the CSS profile. So you're not going to add schools by accident. So you don't have to worry about that. But what I recommend, click on the college program name and then just type it in there. That's the fastest way to find it. You don't know their code. And if you go by state, you're going to see a bazillion schools. So this is the fastest way to do it. But then you got to pay attention. You know, Vanderbilt has med school and law school. So make sure you're selecting the correct one. And then they ask some pretty self-explanatory questions about the school. So that's the first piece. You got to add all those schools, and you can add more. Oops, I forgot to take this out. This was a note from me, so I apologize. I've had a lot going on the last few days.
Behind
So
the scenes,
ignore.
they get to see behind the scenes a little bit. That's
Yes,
okay.
yeah, just ignore that word new. That was for me. So they asked some questions about the parents. And I just want to point this out. They're going to ask for your social security number. You can decide to share it or not. They ask for your child's social security number. And I know with all identity theft, it's a little scary, but some schools track it by social security number. So we've had some parents that are like, they're saying I didn't get it. And it's because they didn't put the social security number for their child. So that's kind of your call. For the parents, I'm telling you right now, you're going to upload your tax returns to these schools, so they're going to see it anyways, but it's your call if you want to put it there. Just a heads up. They are going to ask about your education. I would leave that blank, because if you went to grad school, they're going to make assumptions about you, that you have a certain level of wealth. They're going to see a lot of it, but it's just more data for them. In this kind of deal, you don't want to overshare. These are my 3 commandments. Don't overshare, don't overestimate, and be honest, right? So don't overshare. Don't overshare on that one. That's my take. So on the topic and the line of like not oversharing, you're going to notice that questions are going to say required. And if you don't answer it or put a 0, it's going to give you an error and say you got to fill that in. If it's required, answer it, right? If it's not required, then you can decide. And most I can't say everybody across the board, every family, every question, never answer it, because once in a while I've said to people, hey, that's going to benefit you. Maybe you should answer that, but it's not very common. So most of the time we say, if it's not required, just skip it. Even if there's an answer you could give, they're going to ask you every line on your tax return. They're going to get your tax return. So let them figure that part out. It makes it easier for you to get through it. You're also going to notice that questions have these yes, no's. So once you click into this, all you can do is toggle back and forth. So don't think you can click it and then unclick it. That's just a heads up on that piece. All right, here's a few more examples of required stuff. They're going to ask you your wages. They tell you exactly where it is on your tax return. All of it's going to be 2023. Somebody asked me that in the Q&A. for class of 2025, all the tax information on both forms that they're going to base that SAI or EFC on is 2023. But you notice the tax exempt interest and dividends, it's not required. So just blow through it, right? Just say, they'll find it later if I have anything on those lines. Same thing with parent earnings. And if you don't understand something, click on the little box, right? They give you some good information there. Okay. So that's that piece. This is a big one where people make a lot of mistakes. Follow the directions. It's line 22. It's not 2 lines down. That's a bigger number. They know you're self-employed. They're going to see it. They're going to take into account that piece. So follow the directions, put line 22. Those are the big required ones: wages, earnings, AGI, and taxes. Okay. Then there'll be some questions. Remember, I said earlier, if your adjusted gross income is under 100,000, you're going to get a message that says you're eligible for a fee waiver. So the first college you send to is $25, and each school after that is $16. So this isn't free like the FAFSA. I mean, if your kid isn't applying to 20 schools, it's not too bad, but it's lovely to get a fee waiver. So just if that pops up, it's not an error, and that's a good thing. Some other things they're going to ask about. They're going to ask about your contributions to retirement, not your retirement accounts. This is more how you're contributing. A lot of people contribute to a 401k, 403b right through your paycheck. It shows up like what they're telling you on the W-2, right? That needs to be shared. It's required. If you have an HSA, read the print. That's required. I'm showing you the different required questions here. And the reason why I have these big blue stars here is these are different than the FAFSA. The FAFSA doesn't require this anymore. Another planning opportunity that let us help you with this. There's schools that are, if your family is a certain kind of family, that are just going to be inherently less expensive for you. So these are key differences between the FAFSA and the CSS profile around if you have a housing, food, other living allowance. The CSS wants to know about it. This is a new change with the FAFSA. They do not. So tap us to get support on those pieces. Some of these other, in the financial aid world, we have a term called untaxed income. Has nothing to do with your tax return. It's the financial aid world looks at certain things that the government doesn't tax and can potentially throw them in. The new FAFSA got rid of most of them. So there can be a very big difference between 2 different schools depending on how they calculate your need. Okay. I got to move my Zoom stuff around so I can see my slide here. One thing now, I've told you it's all about 2023 for class of 2025, but the CSS forever has been asking like, well, what is 2024 going to look like for you? And as you see, they're required. So you got to answer something. Again, be honest and don't overestimate. You put the lowest amount you think you're going to make, right? They're not basing the SAI on this. It bothers me that they ask it because the more they know, the more it can be harder for you, which is why you're always going to need to appeal. And we can help you with that too. And then you see here, they're even asking like, next year, are you anticipating any issues, right? This is required. So you got to answer it, but, and I'll say this at the end, you don't want to share about your situation. You want to hold that back. So when it comes to appeal time, you can share it. So if you're ever thinking, hey, I want to share, I think Peg said, don't overshare. You know, you have to be honest, but don't overshare. So don't be shocked when you see these kind of questions because they do it. They ask about this year we're in now, and they ask about next year. And they do it for your child too. I'm not going to show it to you screenshots because it's the same. It's just for the student. Here's some other things, like this goes on and on. You saw all those sections. This is a very long form. So they're asking, MJ is the mother in my sample family. This isn't required, so don't answer it. Do you have these retirement plans? Again, not required, so just leave it blank. This is a question that really, Matt knows, chaps my hide. And last year they made this required, right? So it's a bit of a quandary because you got to answer it. And, I'm telling you to be honest, right? but it's none of their business is the bottom line. It's not part of, I answered this in the Q&A. You don't put your 401k on the FAFSA anywhere when they ask for your assets. They ask for a 401k here, and they look at it. And if you've been a good saver, potentially your child could get a lower package than another family with the same financials, but they have 50,000 saved for retirement because they haven't been able to save. It's hard to save a lot of money for retirement when you're raising kids nowadays, right? But don't be surprised. This question is here. They're not supposed to use it, but it's required now. So it is what it is. So I touched on this before, but they are going to ask your marital status, just like the FAFSA does. And when you say divorced or separated, then they're going to ask you which parent provides the most financial support, and you're going to share. That's going to be the custodial parent. It should match the FAFSA. Those have to be the same. So if you're submitting the CSS earlier, which most of you will, because most of you will not have access to the FAFSA until December 1. They're doing a phased rollout, and not many families are going to be in the first couple months. So, but make sure whatever you do on the CSS, they got to match. So do your research to understand that now. Talk to us now so you have it. If they're only FAFSA schools your child's applying to, great. You got some time to figure it out. But CSS, you got to jump on that. And then they're going to ask some questions about your divorce. And again, it's required. Just answer it. You're good. But when it comes to questions about your ex or your separated spouse, if you're in separation, it's required. Just put unknown. This is my advice to you, because let your ex or your separated spouse answer those questions. You might not answer them perfectly, and that could cause some issues. I would just, if it were me and I were divorced or separate, I would just say unknown, unknown, unknown. So it fills in the blanks and they let you go forward. Okay. That's CAP's recommendation there for divorced families. They're going to ask about child support. It's required, how much, if you received it, if you paid it. So you just got to go through and answer those questions. Okay, housing. They're going to ask if you rent or own. I picked own because there's more questions. Rent, they're going to ask you your rent. They're trying to understand your family's financial situation, right? So this is exactly what I told you. Market value, purchase date, purchase price. This is a big one. A lot of people overvalue their home. There's a way to do this while being honest, but putting your best foot forward. So you don't want to put the price that I get the best price and I leave it on the market until I get that sweet offer and it's staged perfectly. Da 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 da. You don't want to do that. You want to they can look on Zillow. So even if you're not the most honest person, which I never recommend lying, they're going to know if you put an insanely low amount. But you know your home, you know comp. So pay attention to that and let us support you on that if you're not sure how to value your home. All right. Sorry, I got to keep moving this around. I'm sorry. See, these are all my little notes to myself. This is terrible. I got to go fix this buggy me. Okay, so
I promise nobody notices.
I know you. I know
nobody notices, but you until now.
I know it bugs me, so I have to call myself out here. Okay, so assets. Again, no retirement assets here, right? They are very clear here on the dropdown. Do not include your retirement plans. Don't include an asset that you already shared about, obviously. Checking, savings, any non-retirement assets. And then they're going to ask you, do you have real estate? Do you own a business? These are required. So you got to say yes or no. And then when you say yes, if you have a business or a farm or whatever it happens to be, then they're going to ask you a bunch of questions. And if they're required, answer them to the best of your ability. Just remember, if you have 3 partners in your business, you're only going to put your part of it, right? You got to be careful with that. So I'll tell you right now that some businesses have a 0 value, and you are being honest. So my business, before I joined CAP, honestly, if I got hit by a bus, I didn't have office space. I didn't have tons of machines. I mean, if I was gone, that was kind of the value of my business. So a bunch of businesses are like that. So lean on us. We can offer support. Matt's going to talk about that in a few minutes to help you with all of that. So you don't have to wonder if you're doing it wrong. One thing I wanted to point out on the student side, they ask the same questions on the income and assets, but they also ask, like, because some kids are beneficiaries of a trust, and this is a real tough one because parents through the years are like, they can't even access it. Why do I even have to disclose this? They're required questions, but they've added now whose trust is it? And it says parent or other, but what type of trust? So just remember, if this is the case with your family, you need to appeal. You need to appeal, especially if the trust is untouchable. So just keep that in mind. I mean, we feel like most families should be appealing on one or two fronts anyways, but that's a special thing around that. This question, every parent doesn't know how to answer, and you really should talk to us because you can put an answer here that can hurt you, right? You have to answer it. You want to be honest, but there's things to talk about. And it, like Matt said at the beginning with answering your questions, not everybody is going to get the same advice from us how to handle this question. And I have seen families for this question and this question about relatives, and I'm helping them with an appeal. And I'm like, how the hell are they getting this SAI for this family? And then I'm like, what did you put on this line? And they're like, oh, I put this because my mom might, da, da. And I'm like, that's why this happened, right? So it really does make sense to talk to us. It's like you talk to a CPA to help you with your tax return or do your tax return. It's the same thing. We've been through this. We have experts that are at these colleges, so we know at different colleges how they're using some of this information. So we want you to put your best foot forward when you're submitting the forms. And I mentioned this earlier, there's a special circumstances section that looks like this. What we recommend you do is hit none. Just click none and move on. Save your special circumstance for your appeal. If you think about it, if you get your award package and you're like, this isn't what I expected, and you reach out and say, hey, I told you about this, that, and they're like, yeah, we saw it. You don't have as much leverage then to say, hey, thank you for the offer. Hey, now I want to share with you. And that, again, is another thing that we do hundreds and hundreds, thousands of times with families, with all of our experts. Someone put a question in about this. It's funny. She even referenced in her question, somebody asked the make and model of cars. It's not required. Should I just put it? Not required. So you know what I'm going to say. I'd leave it blank. They're trying to see if you have 3 Bentleys on your driveway, right? If they really want that information, they can reach out to you and say, hey, you didn't tell us your cars, I personally would leave it blank, right? It's not required, leave it blank. So just realize you might not have any supplemental questions because the colleges can pick from a big pool of questions if they choose to. You see, these are all Harvard. Some colleges don't, and some colleges do. And they're all different. So you might get a bunch, and then that's what you'll see before you're almost done. Then you'll see all your schools. You'll see that, and I said it's 25 because the first one is $9 and they're each 16, but the first one, they used to combine that, I thought, but it doesn't matter. The math is the same. You're going to put in your credit card. You're going to submit that. You're not going to be able to get out of this without paying. And that's when you know you're done. And then when you're done, the dashboard's going to look a little different, right? You can, like I said at the beginning with the whale fluke, you can correct your CSS. We're trying to help you do is do it right so you don't have to do a correction. But you can rest assured that you can. You can save a copy of it. You can add colleges at any time because it's common. Kids say, not I talked to my counselor and I want to add a school. You can go in. They'll be happy to take your money and send it to another school. Okay. And then you notice down here, there's the next step in the process that we help people with too. Then you have to upload all those documents, like I said. So it's a journey. Matt's going to talk about in a few minutes how we can just basically carry your backpack on this whole journey so that you just drink your water and kind of do your thing. Do you love that analogy or what, Matt? I just
I
pulled
love it.
that one out.
I love it.
And this is just kind of a quick summary of what I already said. Don't answer questions that aren't required. Don't overvalue your home. Don't include 529s as a student asset. Don't overestimate how much you can afford. Don't overestimate your future earnings. And as Matt said, don't miss deadlines. So I was never a helicopter parent, but with that, I was all over it because you literally can lose tens of thousands of dollars. I'm gonna skip this one, Matt.
So,
Don't you think? I
yeah, I
want to
think
give you a little time, but I'm going to end with this wonderful picture of my dog, Ashling. She's a bull mastiff. I'm going to turn it over to Matt, but I wanted to start with the comforting whale fluke. And there's a heart emoji. Love it. And I want to end. I mean, how can you be stressed looking at that face, right?
always a baby, always a
She
baby.
is. She is. And she's the sweetest, sweetest too. All
Uh,
right. I'm going to turn it back over to you now.
a couple things. We got a. I'm going to share a resource in the chat section. Everybody, I know everybody wasn't here right at the top, but we promised we're going to do our very best to get the questions. We answered over 100 of them, Peggy, combined between the two of us. But you got to put your questions in the Q&A. We're here. We're still answering questions, but they got to go in the Q&A. If we did not answer your questions again, it's because we need more specifics or just volume. We didn't get to them, guys. But again, still more to cover. We got some repeat questions of like, hey, we're estranged from the from our ex or from the other biological parent. We don't know where they are. There's no contact. They're not willing to cooperate. We got a whole bunch of those, right? As we always do. And I'm putting a link into the chat for the colleges that are quote unquote requiring the information from the ex spouse or the biological parent. Um, and that's not going to be possible. You need to contact each one of those colleges, and most of them are going to use this exact version. Again, with this PDF that I just put into the link, or something comparable, right? And what you're doing is you're qualifying or applying for what's called a non-custodial waiver. It's a little bit of a painful process because they really make you air your dirty laundry, right? They make you relive these things that are probably not the nicest memories. And but the upside is that they'll meet as a committee and they'll say, okay, here's the situation, and hopefully say, you know what, don't worry about it. We're just going to judge your aid eligibility based on you, right? Based on the parent that is involved and is cooperative, et cetera, et cetera. They're harder to qualify than they should, quite frankly. But that is the process that you want to follow. The other thing I'm going to show quickly is that we got a lot of questions of, well, how do I know which colleges consider home equity? How do I know which colleges require the information from both households? It's all on the platform, guys. Okay. And to give you just a little bit of a hint, if you click into any college here, okay, so if I click into Stanford and I click on this financial aid tab, it's going to tell me what's called the SAI basis. There's two, again, just like it says on the top of the platforms. There's the federal SAI basis and schools that use what's called the institutional methodology, like Stanford. Generally speaking, if it's a school that uses the institutional SAI, they tend to be more generous, but they also usually look at home equity. Stanford is an exception. And they usually require the information from both households in divorce and separated situations. But again, I'm telling you more than you need to know. It's all baked into the platform here. The other thing that is noteworthy, for every college in the country, we have every single scholarship that they offer, the qualifications for each, and we're really good at projecting what is your kid going to get, right? Here's an example at Chapman here, where we know regardless of financial aid eligibility, this kid's going to get 30 grand via merit-based scholarship. So those are some questions we had, and again, those are the best resources that I know that exist around this. But as promised, I want to talk about how we support families, how we work with families beyond. Let's see, I'm not sharing anymore. Beyond this education that we provide and will continue to provide. Peg and I aren't going anywhere, right? We're not going to abandon anybody. We will do this throughout the year, and you know, and again until they get rid of us, right, Peggy?
Yep.
We're not going anywhere. But I want to talk about some of our, specifically for the class 2005, 25, and 26. It's still available for 27s, but for the 25s in particular, we're only working one-on-one with a couple more families just because of our roster being full and just where we are from a calendar standpoint. But a few things to talk about. Number one, these services I'm about to talk about are wake me up when it's over services. On average, we save families $70,000, right? Said another way, most families, and this is pretty firm data, guys, we can stand tall on this. And as a matter of fact, this is a conservative number, but most families that choose not to work with us or aren't able to work with us, they overpay on average about $70,000, right, over the course of 4 years. Obviously, we're a time saver. We're the ones that are doing the heavy lifting for you. I'll get into it to specifics in a second here. Anybody that takes advantage of our admission services, again, on average, 3 times more likely to get into the student's top choice. Does that mean you're going to get into Stanford, MIT, et cetera? Of course not, but we are maximizing our odds here. Now, the first service that I want to talk about is our Wake Me Up When It's Over financial aid service. Okay. And what this looks like is you're working unlimited hours one-on-one with one of our experts, right? The first thing that we're going to do, especially for your class 2025, we're going to stare at this college list and we're going to say, do we have competing schools on here? Do we have schools that, based on the students' preferences, are going to be the best value? They're going to give us merit-based aid. They're going to give us scholarships. They're going to give us need-based aid or a combination thereof. How do we qualify for more need-based financial aid? Okay. We do all the financial aid applications for you. We do the FAFSA. We do the CSS. We do the institutional applications. We worry about who needs what, where, when, how. Okay. It's nice that you don't have to worry about deadlines and you don't have to worry about doing these cumbersome forms, but the how is the critical piece. The how is one of the ways we deliver that tangible ROI, right? That tangible return on investment. Think of it like having a great CPA, right? How you present your situation to these colleges dictates how much you get in the way of deductions, in the way of discounts, right? If you're a divorce separated family, we're going to have firm opinions. This is how we want to complete the forms. If you own your home, this is how we want to value your home and show equity. This is which colleges look at home equity and how much, right? You're a business owner. We're going to be the ones to say, this is how we want to report the business on the FAFSA, on the CSS profile. When you get your offers back from these colleges, we're the ones that are going to lead the charge negotiating, appealing for more financial aid. Okay. And we get to leverage our experts. Who's on our team? The director of financial aid at Harvard, MIT, the former director at USC, right? Former director at Dickinson. We have a very robust roster that we get to leverage kind of this brain trust and just the organic relationships we have to go back to these schools and get more money. And finally, we're going to show you how to pay the bill, right? I saw one of the questions was, we have 529s to cover the first year, but not all 4 years. What do we do then? That's where we're going to weigh in and say, okay, should we exhaust that money up front? Does it make sense to spread out versus 4 years? If we have to borrow, should we do it through the student, the parent? Is it both of us? By the way, Peggy, did you share this link?
No, I will. I had it. I copied it and I just didn't do it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Peg will share this link and another one I'll have for you. But if you go onto our website, you'll see that this service starts at $4,000. Anybody that takes advantage of this today, it's basically, what is it, $800 off. Okay, 20% off. This expires at midnight Pacific Standard Time. You can sign up right through this link here. Use the coupon code CSS20, okay, for 20% off. As soon as you pay, you'll hear from our team tomorrow morning to get you onboarded, connect you with your expert. We're off to the races, right? Wake me up when it's over. Let us grab the wheel. To me, that's no brainer. Tangible ROI. Don't overthink that one, okay? Some of you might feel like you're a little bit behind on the admissions process. You're trying to get your kid to hurry up and start or finish their essay. What do we want to major in? You know, are they working on the supplements in addition to the Common App? Our admissions experts, again, former director of financial aid former director of admissions at BU, former director at the UCs, at USC, very, very experienced folks, excuse me, that are making sure, working one-on-one with your kids to make sure that we're just sending the most polished product possible to these colleges. Some things like, I didn't know that this is relatively new to me. I don't know if this is common knowledge to you folks, but it really matters now on the Common App how you list, the order in which you list your activities, extracurriculars. Who would have known? I wouldn't, but that matters, right? The essay has never mattered more, especially since this Supreme Court rule. So this is a package where if you just want help with admissions, right, and you just want, you know, our one-on-one help with your student, this is what that looks like. Again, 20% off by tonight. For any admissions packages, we can only do 5 of these just because that's as many as we can service for the rest of this year. So there was urgency there in addition to the discount. Now, some of you might be saying, I need both, right? I need help. I need help as the parent with the financial aid piece. My student needs help on the admissions piece, or I want somebody to manage them for the admissions piece. This is by far the best value you're going to find, guys. Obviously, it's a high price point, but if you opt in today, and again, we can only do 5, so it's not going to be available for everybody here. But for admissions plus financial aid, instead you get $1,500 off, right? You have 2 experts, one working with the student, one working with you as the parents, that are going to take you from now, until your student is moving into the dorm. Less than a year from now, right? 10 months, 11 months from now. So that is, for those of you saying, yeah, we need the financial aid and admissions help. This is what we would recommend. Now, if you're class 2026, there is not an urgency in terms of our roster has more, we can do more than 5 families if you're an underclassman, but the coupon code will still expire tonight. So still an unbelievable value, and some urgency there. Okay, let me just grab this link as well. I'm putting this in the chat. So this is just a landing page, guys, where you can kind of see side by side here, right? The 3 options, right? Financial aid versus just admissions versus the combo, and obviously a very, very meaningful discount. Again, we only do this stuff for live audiences, so take advantage of that today. Again, is it a
I
lot of
put the
money?
coupon code in the chat, so
Yeah.
don't forget to plug that in where
CSS
sometimes it's tiny and
Yeah,
people miss.
I'll actually get, so if I go to this combo package and I go to sign up, right? And then I'll say, yeah, I'm gonna pay lump sum and it's $7,500. And then I add my coupon code here. So CSS20. Oh, whoops. This should work in theory. There you go, minus the $1,500, and there you go. So you can do that again right through the link here. And again, we can only do 5 of the admissions and or the combos if you're class 2025. So just get right on that. And again, the coupon code will expire tonight at midnight Pacific time rather. Some of you might be saying, look, that sounds great, but I'm a DIYer. Or that sounds great, but there's zero chance I would make an investment of that size. Here's what you got to do at a minimum. Okay, you can join our club. All right, this is 25 bucks to get started. Then it's $9.99 a month. What you get in that is a few things. The first one is, guys, you get the full version of the software. If you go onto our website, the full version of the software is $149. This gets you on for 25 bucks. That way you can put in unlimited schools here. You can sort based on who's going to give you the most in financial aid scholarships. We have every other week, we have live workshops where we do just kind of like really specific material that are member only workshops. We have an AI chatbot in here that just kind of all of our brain trust into the kind of AI interaction. Every other week we have office hours. So 2 of our experts will just be here Monday, 7 Eastern time to answer your questions that you have. So those are just a few of the benefits. Your risk is 25 bucks. So you kind of know who you are, right? If you know that you're going to need and would really benefit from more hands-on help, look, at the bigger investment you make with us, the bigger return that you're going to get. But with how crazy this process is, for how expensive it is, at a minimum, join our club, and you can only get it through these unique links. You can't join at the 25 bucks through the website or anywhere
I
else.
put the link in the chat to join.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and let me just see if there's some more questions about the.
Yeah, you guys have asked a lot of great questions. Matt said we won't get to all of them, but some of them, they're just perfect questions for us to be handling in one of the Wake Me packages. If that's just blowing you out of the water that you can't do that, then just join the club. Just join the club, and let us guide you, and we'll be able to support you along the way in other ways. But I mean, I think most of the time when people hear about the Wake Me When It's Over that I meet and I bring it up and they're like, thank you. That's exactly what I need. Because it's a lot. It's a lot what you're going through. And you just don't know what you don't know. So you're going to potentially leave things on the table, leave money on the table, leave good options on the table, not because you're dumb. You just don't know. Like, how are you supposed to know everything around this process?
Yeah, it's so easy to make a misstep. And again, I always think it's ironic that probably the biggest, um, the most common profession of folks that hire us are financial planners because they kind of get it to be like, look, I'm going to make an investment because you guys are going to show me how to get a return on this based on your expertise, and that's what we're very good at. Like I said, we have a pretty remarkable ROI and in addition to the kind of intangible stuff of like, okay, great, I get to work with somebody one-on-one through this whole process, and they're gonna, whenever I need it is a phone call, email away, or whatever it happens to be. That and there's something to be said for that as well. So, yeah, and if you are somebody, let me make this offer to you as well. If you're somebody that's listening, that's like, this sounds incredible, but I'm not going to get a chance to talk to my spouse or my ex-spouse. Purchase it tonight to make sure that you get the discount, lock that in, and then you can write into support@collegeaidpro.com and be like, listen, I want to do a gut check with somebody tomorrow. I want to talk to Matt or somebody on the team tomorrow to make sure that is going to be the right fit for us, or make sure that my spouse or my ex-spouse is on board too. And if it turns out that you talk to us and you're like, actually that's not the right fit, or actually my X is vehemently against it, we'll give you 100% refund. No questions asked. But take advantage, lock in that discount tonight, and then we can shore it up. Excuse me, tomorrow or early next week, or whatever it happens to be. Yeah, and there's also payment plans available, guys. So if you click on the link with the combo, you'll see that there's also so if I go to click on this link here, right, to say, yeah, I want to sign up for the combo. Okay, I can either do
You're
month.
not sharing.
Oh, okay, thank you, Peggy.
Sure.
Um, let's see. Okay, so if you say, hey, I do want to take advantage of this combo package here, right? You can either scan it or just click on the link here, and you can either do 6 monthly installments, right? There is a finance charge there for 5%. We try to be explicit with that, or you can do the one time. And again, either way, put the coupon code in there, and they will work for either.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about this when you're in here trying to do it, just again, I put it in the chat, just email us and we'll be happy to
Yep.
to answer your questions.
Yep. Yeah, and again, everybody's gonna get the recording, guys. So we'll send the follow-up, and yeah, make sure that will get sent out very likely tomorrow.
Yeah, and somebody had a question. No, the cost doesn't differ if you have class of 2027, 26, 25. So you'll get the whole rest of this year and all of next year. And actually, our admissions experts love that because they have more time to work with your child and it's not as rushed. So no, the 26 cost will be exactly the same with the discount.
Yep. All right, Peggy. Well, I miss you, my dear. I'm doing my best to represent you, but
I know, I'm
it's not the
so
same.
bummed
I
I'm
gotta
not
say, it's
there,
not the
but
same.
enjoy the sunshine and take care of yourself. Looks like you have a little cough there, buddy.
Yeah, I
So,
will, pal. I will. We'll go to bed early tonight. So,
oh, okay.
all
All
right.
right, everybody. Well, have a great night and, let us support you whatever way works best for you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, take care.